The galaxy was not quiet. It was never quiet. Thousands of worlds turned beneath their suns. Millions of ships crossed the void and countless voices argued in councils, markets, and battlefields. Yet, in one corner of the galaxy, silence had begun to spread. It was the silence of fear. A star, old and vast, burned unsteady in the Valeran system. Its light flickered strangely. Its gravity waves rippled in ways no natural sun should behave. At first, the nearby civilizations thought it was a minor instability, something their scientists could predict and contain. But as time passed, the truth grew darker. The Valeran star was collapsing faster than expected. If nothing was done, it would crush itself into a singularity within a few centuries, dragging its planets, and the billions of lives on them, into eternal night. The Council of Allied Species was summoned. Delegates from 6 great empires and dozens of smaller states arrived. They filled the vast meeting chamber with colors, languages, and sounds, all carrying the same question: what can be done? The Talari, a species of crystal-skinned mathematicians, projected equations across the chamber walls. The time frame is too short. To move billions of people from 4 settled planets would take thousands of years. We cannot save them all. The Vesh, tall insectoid beings with precise voices, clicked in agreement. The logical choice is evacuation of key populations only. Select the strongest, the most valuable, the most intelligent. Sacrifice the rest. At those words, the room erupted in arguments. Some shouted for compassion, others demanded efficiency. None had real answers. Every empire possessed great ships, but none had the power to move whole worlds. Every science academy was advanced, but none could halt the death of a star. In the middle of this storm of doubt, a small group of humans sat quietly. They were few, only 5 delegates wearing simple uniforms. The council hardly noticed them at first. Humanity was young by galactic standards. They had only joined interstellar society a few centuries ago, and while they were clever, they lacked the long histories of the elder empires. When the shouting grew unbearable, one of the humans finally stood. His name was Captain Elias Gray, and his voice was calm when he spoke. "We can solve this," he said. "You don't need to abandon anyone. We've got it covered." The words fell like stones into a pond. For a moment, the whole chamber went silent. Then came the laughter. "You?" hissed the Talari delegate, their crystalline body glowing in sharp flashes. "Your species barely understands high-order gravity fields." The Vesh delegate clicked her mandibles in amusement. "Your kind improvises like gamblers, not scientists. You cannot stabilize a collapsing star." But Elias only repeated, "We've got it covered." He said it without arrogance, without challenge, only with a steady certainty that seemed almost unnatural in such a hopeless moment. The council dismissed the humans' words and returned to their debates. Yet something in their calmness lingered. Some called it ignorance. Others whispered it might be courage. Either way, the humans had planted a seed of curiosity. Days turned into weeks. Fleets arrived at the Valeran system to begin the first stage of evacuation. Massive transports filled the skies of Valeran 4, carrying away those lucky enough to be chosen. But the scale was overwhelming. Billions remained, staring at their unstable sun, knowing they might never escape. During those days, the humans worked. Quietly, steadily, they unloaded strange machines from their ships. They placed beacons across the outer system, each one glowing faintly with energy no alien could identify. They requested materials no one else thought useful: dense alloys, superconductive coils, and strange crystalline lattices that seemed too fragile for engineering. Alien observers recorded everything, trying to understand. The Talari scoffed at the crude design. The Vesh cataloged it as another reckless human experiment. But among the smaller species, whispers spread. What if the humans are serious? What if they truly can do what no one else dares? One such observer was Ralvek, a scholar of the Uran, a small aquatic species known for curiosity. Ralvek floated in his mobile water-filled sphere, watching the humans assemble their strange array. He had studied humanity for years and found them fascinating. They failed often, yet they tried endlessly. They lost battles, yet returned stronger. They faced challenges other species avoided, and sometimes they succeeded. He approached Captain Gray one day, his voice bubbling through the translator. "Why do you believe you can do this? The greatest minds of the galaxy cannot stop a star's collapse." Gray looked at him and smiled slightly. "Because we've done the math. Because we've tested things on smaller scales. Because when a problem looks impossible, that's when we work best. We're not saying it's easy. We're saying it's possible. Ralvek tilted in his sphere. But if you fail, billions will die. Gray's eyes grew hard. If we don't try, billions will die for sure. Those words struck Ralvek like a wave. He realized that for the humans, hope itself was a tool. Where other species saw limits, humans saw a challenge. And sometimes that was enough to shift the balance. Weeks later, the humans revealed the heart of their plan. An enormous structure, a ring larger than any space station, being built slowly around the unstable sun. It looked fragile, like threads of light strung across space. But within those threads pulsed forces beyond understanding. Alien scientists crowded the observation decks. They shouted that the human plan was madness, that such a device would collapse, that it might even speed the star's death. The humans only answered, "We've got it covered." And so part 1 ends with tension. The star continues to shake and flare. Billions wait in fear. The galaxy doubts. But the humans continue their quiet work, unshaken, preparing to attempt the impossible. Somewhere, deep in the heart of Veleron's light, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. The Valeran star pulsed like a wounded heart. Its light no longer shone steady, but flickered across the blackness, casting waves of unstable energy that shook every ship in the system. The evacuation fleets pulled back, waiting for calmer intervals to continue their work. Every empire had its own way of describing the danger, but all their words carried the same meaning. The star was dying, and nothing could stop it, or so they believed. The humans had spoken, quietly, firmly, promising they had it covered. But as the days stretched into weeks, doubt grew louder than faith. Inside the council chamber of the allied species, the atmosphere was tense. Holographic maps of the Veleron system glowed above the round table where delegates argued. "This is reckless," declared the Talari delegate, their crystal body glowing in sharp pulses. "The humans are experimenting with technology they do not fully understand. They risk turning this system into a grave for everyone." The Vesh representative clicked her mandibles in agreement. "Our fleets should not remain near such danger. The logical course is evacuation only. Let the humans destroy themselves with their illusions." Other voices joined the debate. The Yulin, a cautious reptilian species, raised their scaled claws. If the humans fail, the collapse may accelerate. The energy released could ripple across the sector. "We must forbid them." But a smaller voice interrupted. Ralvek, the aquatic urine scholar, spoke from his water-filled sphere. "And if they succeed? If they hold the star steady, then we save billions of lives. Should we not at least watch?" The chamber murmured with unease. The larger empires dismissed the thought, but some of the smaller states whispered among themselves. They had no fleet strong enough to carry their people away. For them, hope was worth more than logic. Captain Elias Gray and his human team were summoned before the council to answer questions. "You claim to stabilize a collapsing star?" The Talari delegate said sharply. "Where are your proofs, your data? Show us equations we can trust." Gray stood tall, his face calm. "We have our data, but your sciences are not built the same way as ours. You may not accept our models. Still, the math works." The council erupted again. Some shouted that this was arrogance. Others called it ignorance. But Gray did not argue. He only repeated the same words. "We've got it covered." Outside the council chambers, the galaxy watched with fascination. News broadcasts traveled from world to world, showing images of the humans' growing structure around the Veleron star. The stabilizer array, as it was being called, stretched like luminous threads of metal and energy across the sun's orbit. Reporters interviewed alien scientists who scoffed at the design. "It is unstable. The energy output required will destroy the devices before they have any effect," said one Vesh engineer. "This is a fantasy," said a Talari mathematician. "A story for children, not serious science." But when cameras turned toward human workers, they only smiled and kept building. The doubt spread beyond words. Alien fleets began to withdraw their support. The Vesh warships, once stationed nearby to protect the evacuation convoys, moved to the outer rim of the system. The Talari transport vessels carried away their scientists, unwilling to risk being near the experiment. On Veleron 4, panic grew. Citizens gathered in the streets, staring up at the sky where their sun flickered dangerously. Some begged for transport off the planet. Others shouted angrily at human delegations, blaming them for giving false hope. Still, the humans worked. Their machines spun in careful patterns, building the massive anchors and power conduits required for the stabilizer array. Ralvek, curious as ever, visited the human construction site. He floated in his sphere through the docking bay, watching hundreds of human workers in suits moving across the scaffolds of the array. Sparks of welding, beams of energy, and the steady hum of machines filled the space. He found Captain Gray near a cluster of consoles. "They don't believe you," Ralvek said softly. "The Empires call this madness." Gray smiled faintly. "That's nothing new. People called it madness when we first split the atom. They called it madness when we flew to our moon. They called it madness when we built ships to leave our solar system, but we did it anyway." Ralvek's gills fluttered inside his sphere. "What if you are wrong this time?" Gray's eyes grew serious. "Then we failed trying to save lives. That is better than succeeding at running away." Those words stayed with Ralvek as he returned to the council. He wondered if perhaps humans were not reckless but simply unwilling to accept despair. Meanwhile, the Velaron star grew more unstable. It spat violent flares across its system, burning satellites and shattering smaller moons. Each flare shook the stabilizer array, but the humans reinforced it, adapting their designs on the spot. Alien observers watched in disbelief. Other species required decades to approve design changes. Humans adjusted within hours. They worked with a kind of desperation that was also strangely beautiful. Failure was not an end for them, only a step toward a different solution. Back in the council, arguments reached their peak. "We should remove them by force," the Vesh delegate hissed. "Their experiment threatens us all. And if they succeed?" Countered Ralvek. "Would you take the credit then? Or would you admit you doubted too soon?" The chamber grew restless. Finally, the council passed a compromise. The humans would be allowed to continue, but no other empire would risk their fleets near the unstable star. If the humans failed, they would fail alone. When the humans heard the verdict, they did not complain. They only nodded and said again, "We've got it covered." That night, across dozens of alien worlds, children asked their parents about humans. Why did they sound so confident? Why did they believe when no one else did? Some parents laughed and dismissed the question. Others, quietly, wondered the same thing. In the Velaron system, the stabilizer array continued to grow, a luminous cage slowly closing around the wild heart of a star. Billions of lives still hung in the balance. The galaxy still doubted, but the humans never stopped. Thus ended Part 2, with the great empires pulling back, their doubt growing heavier than ever. Yet in the silence of the void, the humans built and built, their steady voices repeating the same simple promise. "We've got it covered." The Velaron star trembled like a restless giant. Waves of unstable light rippled across the system, turning nights into sudden bursts of day and scorching the thin atmospheres of smaller moons. Every flare was a warning, every pulse a reminder that time was running out. Most fleets had retreated to the far edge of the system, far from the unstable sun. They watched from a safe distance, waiting to record the inevitable failure of the human experiment. Only a few curious ships stayed closer, their crews unwilling to look away from the drama unfolding before them. And still, in the middle of the danger, humans worked. Inside the construction hub orbiting Velaron 4, the heart of human operations, the air buzzed with energy. Hundreds of engineers and technicians moved through corridors carrying tools, welding new frames and checking consoles that displayed endless streams of data. The stabilizer array was no longer just an idea. It had taken form. Glowing arcs of metal and energy stretching across the orbit of the star like a cage being slowly closed. Yet, doubts remained. Even among those who watched with fascination, there were whispers that this was not science but desperation. It was during this moment of doubt that Captain Elias Gray called for a demonstration. In the docking hall, he stood before dozens of observers, alien scientists, council representatives, and curious scholars like Ralvek of the Uran. The humans had prepared a full model of their plan, projected in shimmering light above the chamber. "This," Gray began, pointing to the glowing image of the Velaron star, "is a star in collapse. Its core is unstable, its gravity field twisted. You say it cannot be stopped. But you're thinking of stabilizing it the way you stabilize machines or engines. We're not doing that. The image shifted. Around the holographic star, bright threads appeared, forming rings and lattices. Each thread pulsed with energy. We are building anchors, Gray explained. Gravitational anchors? The array will not fight the star's collapse, it will guide it. Like reins on a wild beast. We will bleed the energy away in controlled flows and lock its rhythm in place. Instead of falling into chaos, it will settle into balance. The council delegates frowned, murmuring among themselves. That is impossible, the Talari scientist interrupted, their crystal facets glowing angrily. Your materials cannot survive such forces. Even if they did, the energy requirements would consume your own array. Gray's second in command, a woman named Dr. Karen Holt, stepped forward. Her voice was firm but patient. We've already tested the principles. Smaller stars, controlled reactions. It can work. You dismiss us because we do not explain it in your language of equations. But our results speak for themselves. You cannot scale such experiments to this level, argued the Vesh delegate, clicking her mandibles. This is folly. Gray did not raise his voice. He only repeated what he had said from the beginning. We've got it covered. Ralvek leaned forward in his sphere of water, fascinated by the model. If this works, he said softly, you are not just saving Veleron, you are rewriting stellar science itself. Gray gave a small smile. Then it's about time someone rewrote it. Despite the presentation, most of the great empires remained unconvinced. Their fleets stayed back, unwilling to risk themselves near the unstable star. But among the smaller species, something had begun to stir, a fragile seed of hope. On Veleron IV, citizens gathered in city squares, watching the night sky where parts of the stabilizer array shone faintly like silver threads. For the first time in years, some dared to believe they might not need to flee their homes. Meanwhile, work on the array pushed forward with relentless speed. In orbit around the star, human engineers maneuvered massive scaffolds into place. Machines hummed as they forged anchor rods, each one infused with strange crystalline lattices that shimmered when touched by energy. Alien observers watched in confusion. Their instruments could not understand the full purpose of the crystals, nor the way humans mixed them with alloys. To them it looked like improvisation, messy and unstable. But to the humans it was careful innovation, built from centuries of trial and error. They are reckless, one Vesh officer muttered aboard his retreating warship. This will collapse, but another officer, younger, whispered, and if it doesn't? Inside the human command center, Captain Gray studied the progress reports. Lines of data scrolled across screens showing the energy flows, the gravitational distortions, the stresses on the array. How long until Phase 1 is ready? He asked. Dr. Holt tapped her console. 4 more days. Once the anchors are aligned, we can begin the first test pulse. Gray nodded. Good. Make sure safety protocols are in place. We don't want to give the Council any reason to panic more than they already do. A technician nearby chuckled softly. They already think we're insane. Gray smiled faintly. Then we'll show them the difference between insanity and vision. Ralvek, who had been granted special permission to stay aboard the human station, swam closer in his sphere. Do you not feel fear? He asked quietly. The star could destroy you at any moment. Gray looked at him with calm eyes. Of course we feel fear. But fear is not the end of action. It's the start. We feel it and we keep moving. That's how humanity has always survived. Ralvek was silent for a moment. Then he whispered, maybe that is why you can attempt what no one else dares. On the 4th day, the humans prepared for their first test. The stabilizer array was only half complete, but enough anchors had been aligned to attempt a pulse. The goal was simple: draw off a fraction of the star's chaotic energy and redirect it into the void. If it worked, it would prove the principle. If it failed, the array could collapse instantly. From across the system, alien fleets turned their sensors toward the star. Billions of eyes across the galaxy waited for the outcome. In the command center, the human team stood ready. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1, engage. The anchors flared with light. Energy surged through the lattice, weaving into glowing streams that curved around the unstable star. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the violent ripples of the star seemed to calm just slightly, as if something was holding its fury in place. The command center filled with cheers. For the first time, the system's light shone steady for a few seconds. But then alarms screamed. One of the anchor rods overheated, shattering under the strain. Energy flared wildly, nearly tearing the array apart before emergency cutoffs triggered. The test ended in chaos. Alien news networks declared it a failure. The Talari shouted, "We warned you!" The Vesh demanded the humans abandon the project before they doomed everyone. But inside the human command center, Gray and his team were calm. Dr. Holt reviewed the data. It worked. The stabilizer engaged. We just pushed it too hard. We need stronger rods and better energy dispersal. But the principle holds, Gray nodded. His voice was steady as ever. Then we adjust. We build again. We move forward. When alien reporters demanded a statement, Gray stepped before the cameras. He didn't argue, he didn't boast. He only said, "We've got it covered." Thus ended Part 3. The galaxy saw what they thought was proof of failure, but the humans saw proof of success. The difference was simple. Where others saw an end, humans saw the beginning of a solution. And so, while the empires mocked, the humans worked harder. The impossible was still before them, but step by step they were getting closer. The Veleron star pulsed angrily. Its surface roiled with violent flares, each one hotter and more unpredictable than the last. Solar winds tore through the system, battering the evacuation fleets that hovered at safe distances. Most species had abandoned hope. They believed the collapse was inevitable, that billions of lives were already lost before the humans could even try. But the humans had no intention of waiting. Inside the orbiting construction hub, the stabilizer array stood nearly complete. Every gravitational anchor, energy lattice, and crystalline conduit had been carefully positioned. Engineers moved like dancers, welding, calibrating, and adjusting the final pieces. It was a massive, intricate structure, almost beautiful in its precision. Captain Elias Gray walked along the scaffolding, his eyes calm as he observed the teams. "Check the energy flow across sectors 7 through 12, he ordered. "Make sure the secondary anchors are synchronized with the star's pulse. We cannot risk even minor fluctuations." Dr. Karen Holt nodded. "We're ready, Captain." All systems report green, but the star's flares are more violent than predicted. "We may have only one shot." Gray glanced at the star. It roared with power, waves of unstable energy shimmering across its surface like molten silver. "Then we make this shot count," he said simply. The alien observers could not believe what they were witnessing. Fleet commanders hovered on the edge of the system, scanning the human structures with a mix of fear and awe. "They will fail," said one Vesh admiral, clicking her mandibles nervously. "The star will consume them before they complete activation." A younger officer, a human-curious scholar from a minor species, whispered, "Or maybe they'll succeed," the admiral hissed. "Don't speak foolishness. No species could control a star. That is impossible." Yet even as doubt filled the void, something stirred among the fleets. Some officers began recording every human action, trying to understand how they could possibly manage it. Even the Talari scientists who had laughed at the humans weeks before now watched silently, unwilling to look away. The countdown began. The humans prepared the stabilizer array for full activation. This was not a test. This was the moment when all calculations, all efforts, and all hope would either succeed or fail. 3, 2, 1, engage. Energy surged through the lattice like lightning captured in wires. The gravitational anchors hummed with power, weaving invisible threads of force that reached deep into the star. The entire array shimmered, pulsing in rhythm with the star's heartbeat. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The star flared violently, tossing waves of energy into space. Alien ships rocked in their orbits, some alarms sounding as instruments overloaded from the power surges. Then, slowly, the star's chaotic movements began to stabilize. Flare after flare lost intensity. Surface roiling eased. The unstable pulses softened. The stabilizer array held. Cheering erupted among the human crew. Engineers hugged, technicians high-fived, and Gray smiled at the result. But there was no time for celebration. The star's energy remained unpredictable, and one mistake could collapse the array. "Secondary anchors," Gray ordered. "Synchronize immediately. Phase 2, full energy dispersal. Hold the star's rhythm steady." Dr. Holt adjusted the settings, monitoring the flows. "The secondary anchors are online. Energy is being redirected safely into the void. Star's pulse is stabilizing." From across the system, alien observers could not believe what they were seeing. The star, once a furious and deadly force, now shone steadily. Its violent ripples had slowed, and its flares were less intense. Some of the Talari muttered in disbelief. "How?" one whispered. Gray's voice was calm, yet full of quiet authority. "We've got it covered." The stabilizer array was not perfect. Small fluctuations continued to ripple through the system, but they were within manageable limits. The humans adapted instantly, adjusting the energy flow and reinforcing the anchors in real time. Their flexibility, their ability to improvise under pressure, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Ralvek floated in his sphere, watching the human team. "They are extraordinary," he murmured to himself. "No one else could do this." Nearby, a Vesh officer whispered the same thought to her companion. "They may be the greatest problem solvers we have ever seen." Even the evacuation fleets, which had initially retreated in fear, began to inch closer. They watched as humans worked calmly amid the chaos, proving that the impossible could be done. For hours, the stabilizer array held the star steady. Its energy was harnessed, redirected, and controlled in a way no alien science could replicate. The humans monitored every sector, recalibrating continuously. Each adjustment was precise yet swift, showing a combination of preparation and instinct that was uniquely human. Some alien scientists approached the human command center, eager to learn. They recorded data, asked questions, and tried to understand the methodology. Yet the humans were humble, explaining only as much as needed. Their confidence did not require praise. Their focus was the work itself, and the work succeeded. As the star settled, the galaxy could see the result. Planets in the Velaron system no longer trembled under violent solar storms. Atmospheres stabilized. Cities that had been on the brink of evacuation could breathe a sigh of relief. Billions of lives were saved, and the impossible task, long deemed hopeless, had been achieved. The humans did not celebrate with grand speeches. They checked and rechecked their systems, ensuring stability. Engineers repaired minor damages, reinforced weakened conduits, and prepared for continuous operation. Gray addressed his team simply. "Good work. Keep it steady. The star is safe, but we're not done yet." Alien fleets slowly entered the system. Commanders approached the humans, many of them still skeptical but filled with awe. "You did what we thought could not be done," a Talari scientist said quietly. "Your methods, we cannot fully understand them. But you have saved this system." Gray only nodded. "We've got it covered. That's all we do. Look for solutions where others see none." The words echoed across the observation decks. They were not a boast. They were a statement of principle. On Velaron IV, citizens poured into streets to see the star shining steadily in the night sky. For the first time in decades, they could sleep without fear. Children laughed. Markets reopened. Families embraced, knowing their lives were no longer under immediate threat. News broadcasts from across the galaxy told the story. Humans have stabilized the Velaron star. Billions of lives saved. Impossible task completed. Many species were stunned. Some had doubted humanity's ability for centuries. Some had dismissed them as reckless or naive. But now the galaxy had no choice but to acknowledge the humans' capabilities. Ralvek, watching from his sphere, smiled softly. "It was more than courage," he whispered. "It was vision. Only humans could see possibility where others saw disaster." Gray stood near the control panels, watching the star. His team worked quietly, checking energy flows and recalibrating anchors. He felt no pride, only responsibility. The star was stable, yes, but the work of preserving life was never finished. He turned to Dr. Holt. "Phase 3 will require further energy dispersion. We can hold the star for years, but we need to make it permanent." Holt nodded. "We're ready, Captain." Gray's eyes drifted back to the star. The galaxy had watched, and for a moment, it had learned a lesson. Where others saw the impossible, humans saw only another problem to solve, and the humans solved it. Thus ended Part 4. The stabilizer array worked. The impossible had become reality. The galaxy could no longer doubt the humans' abilities. Where others hesitated, humans acted. Where others feared, humans innovated. And once again a simple phrase echoed across the cosmos, reaching ears that had doubted for centuries. "We've got it covered." The Velaron star pulsed steadily now, no longer a furious, unstable mass, but a calm, controlled beacon of light. Its violent flares had softened into a rhythmic glow, and the once tense planets of the system basked in its gentle warmth. The stabilizer array hummed softly, its energy flows steady and reliable. The galaxy watched in awe. News broadcasts traveled from world to world, carrying the story of the humans who had accomplished what no one else dared attempt. Billions of lives had been saved. Entire fleets had observed the impossible, and the humans, as always, had done it quietly without fanfare, without seeking praise. Inside the orbiting human command hub, Captain Elias Gray and his team moved among the consoles, checking the final systems. Engineers repaired minor damages, recalibrated anchors, and ensured that every energy lattice remained stable. They did not cheer loudly. Their satisfaction was quiet, measured. The task was far from over, and discipline was part of what had allowed them to succeed. Dr. Karen Holt approached Gray, her eyes bright with relief. "We've done it. The star is stable. The system is safe. Millions, billions even, owe their lives to this work." Gray nodded, his gaze fixed on the glowing sun. "We've done our part. Now we make sure it stays safe. That's always the next step." Across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Many elder species were still processing the events. Some Talari scientists refused to believe the stabilizer array had actually worked. "It must have been luck," they murmured. "No species could have achieved this." But luck had little to do with it. Observers who studied human operations noticed patterns that separated humans from all other civilizations. Their willingness to face impossible odds, their adaptability under pressure, and their calm determination in the midst of chaos. Where other species froze, humans acted. Where others hesitated, humans improvised. For once, skepticism began to turn into respect. Some fleets returned to study human methods. Younger scholars took detailed notes, hoping to understand how humans solved problems that had stumped the galaxy for centuries. On Valaran 4, citizens emerged into the night streets. They looked up at their sun, now shining steadily, and their fear melted into awe. Families gathered in quiet squares, children pointing at the glowing threads of the stabilizer array above. Markets reopened. Schools resumed. And for the first time in decades, people spoke freely of hope, of future plans, of dreams beyond mere survival. Some approached the human delegation to offer thanks. Gray and his team received the gestures with quiet nods and simple words. "We've got it covered." It was not arrogance. It was a principle, a statement of commitment, a reminder that for humanity, the word impossible was never a reason to stop. News broadcasts from the system spread quickly. Across hundreds of worlds, species learned of the human achievement. Analysts debated the methods. Scholars published papers questioning physics, challenging old theories, and re-evaluating centuries of galactic science. Governments began to reconsider their approach to emergencies, realizing that humans brought something different, a willingness to act where others could only watch. Even former skeptics began to take notice. The Vesh Admiral, who had once called the humans reckless, now studied the stabilizer array data with careful attention. "They saw possibilities we ignored," she said quietly to her staff. They did not hesitate. They acted. And they succeeded. For Ralvek, the Uran scholar who had observed humans up close, the impact was personal. He had seen their courage, their ingenuity, and their quiet confidence in the face of impossible odds. He floated through the city of Velaranbar, watching children laugh, citizens embrace, and workers continue repairs. "They are more than engineers," he whispered. "They are visionaries. They do not follow rules, they create new ones. They do not see limits, they see challenges. This is why they succeed when others fail." He recorded his observations carefully, knowing that the galaxy would need proof. Humanity had changed everything simply by acting where others had feared to move. In the weeks that followed, the stabilizer array continued to operate flawlessly. The star remained calm. Evacuation efforts were scaled back because there was no longer an immediate threat. Planetary life resumed normal patterns. Ships from across the galaxy came to study the human methods, eager to understand how a species so young could solve a problem so vast. Gray walked along one of the observation platforms, looking out at the distant fleets and bright threads of the array. "They're curious," he said to Dr. Holt. "They want to understand. But some things they cannot learn in a day." Holt nodded. "They'll try anyway. That is what makes them different from other species. They learn by observing and sometimes by failing. Humans do both, but faster." Gray smiled faintly. And we keep moving forward. That's all we do. Soon, formal recognition arrived. The Council of Allied Species issued statements of gratitude and respect. Invitations were sent to human representatives for lectures, discussions, and collaborations. Scholars from distant worlds requested meetings to study human engineering methods. News agencies began featuring humans as the fixers of the impossible, a title that spread faster than light across the galaxy. Even the most skeptical empires could not deny it. Humanity had performed a feat no other species could replicate. They had stabilized a collapsing star, saved billions of lives, and done so calmly, efficiently, and without seeking glory. And every time someone asked for a human comment, the answer was the same: "We've got it covered." The phrase became legend. In council chambers, in classrooms, in fleets, in cities, wherever the story was told, the phrase inspired hope. Children repeated it in playgrounds, adults whispered it in awe, and scholars scribbled it in notes and diaries. It became synonymous with human ingenuity, courage, and perseverance. Gray and his team continued to work, ensuring that the stabilizer array would function for centuries. They monitored energy flows, repaired minor faults, and improved anchor designs. For humans, success was not an endpoint, it was a responsibility. Months later, the galaxy reflected on what had happened. Entire civilizations reconsidered their approach to challenges. Where once they had feared impossible problems, they now began to see solutions. Humans had reminded the galaxy of a simple truth: courage, intelligence, and determination could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. On Veleron 4, Ralvek recorded his final observations. Humans do not seek to dominate, to boast, or to rule. They act, they solve problems. They inspire. This is why their presence in the galaxy changes everything. They are the species that turns the impossible into reality. Gray stood one evening on a platform overlooking the system, the stabilizer array glowing around the star like a ring of light. Dr. Holt joined him, observing the calm sun. "Do you ever wonder what will come next?" she asked. Gray shook his head, smiling faintly. "We'll find another problem, and we'll handle it. That's all we do." They both looked at the star. The system was safe. Life would continue. And the galaxy for the first time truly understood humanity, because when humans said, "We've got it covered," they meant it, and they always delivered. Thus ended the story. Humanity's quiet courage, ingenuity, and determination had saved a star, stabilized a system, and reminded the galaxy why humans were unique. Where others doubted, humans acted. Where others hesitated, humans solved. The impossible was no longer impossible, and a simple phrase echoed through space as a promise and a warning: "We've got it covered."